National Action Plan, MDA is urged to intensify efforts to implement for better business environment.
To hold agencies accountable and to encourage them to push more to deliver these reforms for Nigerians.
Global Index lauds Nigeria's fight against terrorism.
We shall continue to forge ahead with even greater vigor, commitment, and dedication, and would not let Nigerians down.
APC Mai Malabuni's committee resumes. The party is crisis-free and strong.
The party is resilient and stronger than ever, and there is no trouble anywhere in our party.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our conversation is on addressing the lingering security challenges in the northern parts of Nigeria.
Okay, so despite the numerous security architecture, military operations, policy plans, and dialogue, it will appear that efforts at checking violence and insecurity make gradual but very slow progress as peace remains elusive to the region.
That's right, Claire. What is, however, not illusory to the region are the deep-seated causes of insecurity. Now, there are accounts that the security situation in the northeast, northwest, and north central are multifaceted and as complex as they are interrelated.
And of course, political analysts believe that at the root of the insecurity in the region, of course, will be long-running struggle over land and resources, and of course, predominantly between herders and farmers, and also, of course, other non-state actors and terrorists.
Well, over time, the different groups have been mobilized with arms to protect their lives and, of course, the means of livelihood. But this has further compounded the security situation in the region with attacks and counterattacks and, inevitably, the fatalities that arise from those incidents.
Now, insecurity is further exacerbated as the explosion will be seen in, of course, criminal activities here and there, banditry, kidnapping, and there is also believed infiltration by jihadist groups from other parts of the world into the region. And of course, this has been attributed to weak and porous borders, border policing, I should say, and of course, other sellouts. Now, some of those mentioned earlier are organized gangs that are said to be taking over and operating from ungoverned forests, especially as seen in the northwest.
Now, according to a report by the Center for Democracy and Development, the report says that there are over 100 bandit groups operating in the northwest region, representing approximately 30,000 militants. And that's quite an alarming number, Claire, if you may. And we do know that in the past couple of weeks, there have been horrendous stories out of the northwest region. For instance, in Kebbi, at least 63 members of a vigilante group in 2 communities were ambushed and murdered by the bandits in that region. And just a couple of days later, the audacity of the bandits was writ large when they also attacked the convoy of the deputy governor of Kebbi State. And that led to, according to some accounts, the death of some 24 service personnel, including the police and the military. And subsequently, there were protests by the widows of the service personnel at the office of a commanding officer in Kebbi State.
You know, Kingsley, what is worrisome is that, yes, we probably have seen a reduction in the attacks in the villages, in the communities. What we now see is an increased ambush.
That's right. No question about that. I mean, if you were to pay attention to the northeastern part of the country, there has been great gains. Sorry, there have been great gains in dealing with Boko Haram elements in Borno and Yobe. No question about that. But it is now in the northwestern part of the country, more especially Katsina, Kebbi, and of course Niger. And if you recall, during the last farming season, the Niger State governor did say on record that a number of the communities had been taken over by bandits who were collecting ransom or protection fees from farmers, and in some cases also burnt down the farms for those, of course, who didn't cooperate with them. But the numbers of incidents and fatalities that we are seeing arising from the various ambush incidents would, of course, indicate that there's a lot of work that needs to be done more in the northwestern parts of the country.
And just to add, Kingsley, I think this week, the news coming from Niger State indicates that the renewed security offensive, yes, it's impactful. It's making impact. Hundreds of cows and sheep and a lot of, Boko Haram terrorists were neutralized, according to the reports that we hear. So it's a good thing. It's a good development, that more efforts should be, put into intelligence and all that. But again, the numbers keep increasing, as the ambushes, are carried out.
That's right. No question about that. And of course, we've raised the questions, what needs to be done in addition to what is already happening in terms of security operations to contain the insecurity in the northern part of the country, more especially in the northwestern zone. We, of course, entering the planting season in some weeks from now, where there's a greater deal of reliance on rain-fed agriculture. So will farmers be able to go to their farms? There are all kinds of questions related to the nation's food security. And more particularly, what are the chief executives of the various states also doing? So that's our focus in our conversation segment on Good Morning Nigeria today, on which note we welcome you to the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. It is always a pleasure to have you join us on the program. And we're broadcasting live from our network service of the NTA, right from our studios here in Abuja. Wherever you're watching from, we do appreciate you. All of you who see us and say, look, you guys are doing a wonderful job. We appreciate you. And of course, we always want you to join in our conversation. Shortly, we will give out our Twitter handles. But for now, Musbah Adan Wahab is already waiting to give us the morning news highlights. Musbah, can you take it up from here?
Very good morning, Claire and Kingsley. The news. Ministries, departments and agencies involved in the implementation of the national action plans have been advised to intensify our efforts in the execution of the plans aimed towards creating a better business environment. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo gave the advice when the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which he chairs, received the midway report on National Action Plan 7.0.
We have the agro-export plan, and then we have the other initiatives, the regulatory initiatives, the automation initiative, the airport plan.
Nigeria's military successes in the ongoing counter-insurgency operations in the northeast is acknowledged by the Global Index on Terrorism. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya Setiviz at the commencement of the 2022 First Quarter Chief of Army Staff Conference holding in Abuja.
Support ahead with even greater vigor, commitment and dedication, and would not let Nigerians down.
The Nigeria Police Force is working round the clock to ensure full implementation of the increments of salaries and allowances of officers and men recently approved by the Federal Executive Council. Acting Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi said this while reacting to the alleged strike action by some members of the Nigeria Police Force.
The president, he was the one that started it and is the one that has the minister to present at the FEC, and the FEC has approved. The president has released a huge amount of money to commence the payment. So no cause for alarm is the pet project of the federal government, and that is what they will do. So there is no need for us to, and they are going to pay in arrears. No matter if it is April, if it's June, if it is May, they will pay arrears. That's one good thing about it.
And also the National Assembly, where the Senate is considering a bill that seeks to establish sickle cell disease research and treatment centers across Nigeria. The bill, which has passed second reading, canvasses early detection and prevention of the inherited disease.
Strength of the sickle cell disease research and treatment center in teaching hospitals across the country.
Sickle cell is a disease that we are all concerned about. And if there is anything that we need to do to minimize its depressive and debilitating impact, we should do so.
And the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate the state of affairs in the Nigeria Railway Corporation following allegations of inefficiency. The decision is equal to a motion from Minority Leader during Tuesday's plenary.
Effectively conduct routine standard operation check, thereby raising serious issues about the safety and reliability of our rail services, which must be seriously investigated.
Away from the National Assembly, the All Progressives Congress APC caretaker an extraordinary convention planning committee under the chairmanship of Yobe State Governor Mai Malabuni said the governing party is crisis-free, strong and remains united in giving the country the transformative leadership and good governance it promised Nigerians.
Nigerians, that our party is resilient and stronger than ever. And there is no trouble anywhere in our party.
That's a bit of the news, and good morning, Nigeria. You can be sure we'll get more across to you in the course of the day. But for now, let's take a break, and the program Good Morning Nigeria will continue with Claire and Kinsley in just a moment. Thanks for your time.
Now everybody knows that enjoy the reward that sharing brings with the Airtel family plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS, and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Everybody knows the secret to good cooking is that special ingredient. The mothers know it, but does this new generation know it? Let's find out. Mothers, daughters, are you ready? Let the cooking begin.
Now we get home, now we get love, now we get strength. Spice the world, I'm here so great, it's so healthy. You know we've got with
Ladies and gentlemen, food is ready.
Good food for the body.
Erisco Richico and Nagico tomato paste is made by Erisco Foods Limited, feeding Africans with healthy foods.
Every Harmattan, he falls sick so frequently and misses school often. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apple. She said an apple a day keeps...
If you want to keep germs away, then use Dettol soap regularly. Germs and disease spread easily during Harmattan. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Arise, O Nigerians. Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
The Council of our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Welcome back. If you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Just a reminder that you can be part of our conversation today if you follow us on our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. So let's look at business stories. Foreign trade statistics has put Nigeria's total trade for 2021's fourth quarter at 11.707 trillion naira. For details of this and more, here is Kunle Adeyeye.
The latest foreign trade statistics on the fourth quarter of 2021 released by the National Bureau of Statistics show that Nigeria's total trade stood at 11.70 trillion naira. Total exports trade value was 5.766 trillion naira and imports trade value stood at 5.940 trillion naira, which indicates a negative trade balance of 173.96 billion naira. Total trade in quarter 4 of 2021 was 11.79%, which is, however, higher when compared to the value recorded in the third quarter of the same year, which was 10.472 trillion naira. Exports trade grew by 12.27% from 5.136 trillion naira, while imports trade grew by 11.33% from 5.335 trillion naira. The NBS data added that Nigeria export trade was mainly dominated by crude oil, which amounted to 4.269 trillion naira, followed by natural gas, liquefied gas, submersible drilling, and urea. Major products imported were motor spirits, followed by wheat, rolled iron, steel, and others. The top 5 major trading partners in exports during the fourth quarter of 2021 were India, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and Indonesia. The top import trading partners during the period under review are China, Belgium, India, the Netherlands, and the United States of America. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle Adeyeye, for the business package, and Good Morning Nigeria. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, and time to introduce Bayo Toyebi. Am I glad to see him? Yes, Bayo.
Glad to see you too. Good morning, Claire. Good morning,
to see you.
Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
You had a good rest?
Yes.
So
I
what
did as you did last year when you went on leave.
As Kinsley did.
All work and no
As
play.
Kinsley did.
Yes.
Kinsley did that in December.
I've been re-seeing Bayo since Monday. So you say glad to see you, but I've been seeing him, which you say re-seeing him since Monday.
Well,
so
I'm seeing you for the first time. So we'll talk about what you did, with your break after now. All right, let's begin with the Nigerian pilot. Yes, and it says, "We're back." That's the lead caption. Who is back? Governor Buni's camp retakes APC National Secretariat, declares that the party is now crisis-free. Senator Akpanu explains that sundry actions taken in Buni's absence was to meet INEC election timetable. But spokesperson of the Governor Bello-led CECPC insists that the party's neck holds tomorrow. So those are the trending riders to that lead story. We are back. Details of that on page 8. And just below that, you see the picture story. Okay, I was just showing Kingsley and Bayo my NYSC picture a while ago, and here they are. National Youth Service Corps members on the march past during their passing out of NYSC 2022 Batch A Stream 1 orientation course. That's at Kubwa Orientation Camp in Abuja. And of course, just below that, airline operators give FG condition to avert withdrawal of service. Details of that on page 20. Bandit attack kill DPO NASCO, others at NASCO village. Sat there. NAS gets 48 hours to expunge Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Details of that on page 9. And JAM apprehends perpetrators of illegal registration is on page 28. Reps accuse NNPC of shielding subsidiary heads from summons. It's on page 9. And FG to borrow more to fund petrol subsidy, says Finance Minister. Details of that on page 8. And then there's a story that's at the bottom there, just running at the base of the paper. Nigeria recorded 15% inflation rate in February 2022. That's NBS. Okay, I think that's just the stories trending on the front page of the Nigerian Pilot. Kingsley.
Thank you very much, Claire. You were talking about your NYSC photograph in relation, of course, to the photograph on the front page, the passing out from the orientation camp yesterday. This was at Kubwa. I'm sure, Bayo, by the time at the time you did your youth service, and I also did mine, there was no orientation camp in Abuja.
Yes.
And nobody was being posted to Abuja.
Abuja then, yes.
I didn't say I did mine in Abuja.
No, it's part of the story we're talking about. Just to say, so that those who might have older photographs.
I did mine in Yipaka, Kingsley. Oh. That's in Kwara State.
Oh, that's interesting. I did mine at Wudil. It was then a teachers' college in Kano.
I did mine in Maiduguri.
Precisely.
Borno State.
Interesting. All right, Claire, thanks a lot for the memories. Let's return to the papers and take a look at the window pages of the Daily Sun and leadership. Let's begin with the leadership, by the way. Leadership says 20 bandits, 3 policemen, and 4 vigilantes killed in Niger attack. And Amechi opposes 12% in the massive revenue for maritime varsity. Nigeria's 2022 budget deficit may hit 10 trillion naira as oil export drops. This is, of course, amid rising prices of crude oil. PDP NEC to produce schedule for party primary. And then you also have the stories there on the APC as Buni finally takes charge, which is the kicker. INEC confirms attendance of APC NEC meeting tomorrow. Party pegs chairmanship form at 20 million naira. Drama in court as lawyers fight over representation in APC's suit to vacate court order. While we are training convention protocol officers, that's according to Ganduji, who chairs the committee. And for the Daily Sun newspaper, Daily Sun, they have Q4 2021. That's the fourth quarter of 2021. Nigeria records negative trade balance with 173.96 billion naira. Inflation hits 3-month high at 15.7%. Wow. Aviation fuel, Senate steps in, begs operators. APC chairmanship aspirants to pay 20 million naira. Buni Akpan Udoede take firm control of party secretariat. Bello expected in office. That's the Daily Sun still. And CECPC. This almost sounded like a Chinese company's acronym. CECPC. That should be a convention or some title relating to the temporary arrangements, the caretaker committee of the APC. Thanks, INEC, for intervention, says March 26, sacrosanct. 2023 presidency, PDP splits over zoning. Party's national caucus fails to agree, reschedules meeting, and the NEC to meet today. That's the NEC of the PDP. Again, another political story. 2023 jostle for APC VP ticket tears northern governors apart. And this is a story inside. It's at page 29, I think. ASU strike. ABSU, that's Abia State University, makes U-turn, recalls students. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. I just wanted to reminiscent that we all take great pride in having served our fatherland in the National Youth Service Corps.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. Barely 24 hours after being restored from an initial lockdown, the national grid collapsed again on Tuesday. This second collapse was said to have taken place between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. when the generation dropped from 3,000 megawatts to about 1,758 megawatts. Daily Trust reports that the system collapse was multiple, especially from the gas-fired plants. The Minister for Power, Engineer Abubakar Aliyu, is reported to have summoned an emergency meeting and stressed that something must be done immediately. He enjoined operators to have patience and talk to one another rather than blaming each other. Data from Transmission Company of Nigeria has shown that the grid lost about 4,000 megawatts in the first 4 days of the month of March. Low water level is reported to have affected Shiroro and Jeba dams, with losses of about 307 megawatts and 125 megawatts respectively. In the area of Egbe is said to have lost about 514 megawatts, while gas shortages were responsible to have affected all other plants. Transmission Company of Nigeria says that it will be left with no choice than to continue load shedding if cumulative power generation does not increase. So unless something is done drastically, we may not be seeing the end of that now. The university, Abia State University, Oturu, has taken a bold step to recall the students. The registrar of the university announced that students, former students, are to report on campus on 19th of March to commence registration. New students for registration is to commence on 25th of March. Lectures are to commence on 28th of March. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Onyemachi Oburu, on behalf of management, approved the resumption. However, the Sun also reports that University of Benin has quitted students from the hostels on the campus. The political stories now. The All Progressive Congress is reported to have, for the Extraordinary Caretaker Convention Planning Committee, to have announced sale of nomination and expression of interest or form for national officers. Aspirants for chairman are to pay 20 million, while deputy chairman are to cough out 10 million. those who are seeking the position of national officers are to pay 5 million. For other deputy positions which are not members of National Working Committee, the cost for the form is 1 million. Other positions that are zonal level are to attract 500,000. Women and the physically challenged candidates are to pay 50% of prescribed fees for the position they are advocating for. Party spokesman Barrister Ismail Ahmed says that NEC is to meet Thursday, 17th March for convention, while the 26th March convention is expecting to have about 3,000 to 4,000 delegates. For the People's Democratic Party, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has opined that the People's Democratic Party, if they lose the 2023 presidential election, may mean an end of the party. Alhaji Abubakar expressed this concern to a consultative meeting of the Board of Trustees. And he said, the party may not survive another 8 years as an opposition party. This, he said, is because by the next 8 years, he does not know how many of us will be left in politics, stressing that it may even ultimately lead to the death of the party. And he explained this. He says, he suggested that in the developing world, the tendency is that people tend to look towards the government in power. He, however, emphasized that they invented the zoning policy simply to ensure that every part of the country have a sense of belonging. He said for many years, the PDP government of 8 years and 6 years, all of them went for the South. So PDP should not be stampeded by the opposition. Well, so those are the political developments.
And I'm just wondering, because there's been no explanation. It's the internal affair of respective political parties. But has there been a time when aspirants to positions in the National Working Committee of Political Parties were asked to pick nomination forms at this cost? Because here we're saying that party pegs, that's APC, chairmanship form at 20 million naira. At some point, they were gunning for a consensus candidate. So if you were gunning for a consensus candidate, what then is the utility of 20 million naira for a nomination form? And if it is 20 million naira for a nomination form, your guess is as good as mine, what the cost will be for gubernatorial forms and presidential forms. Because the primaries are just around the corner as well. So, as I said, it's an internal affair of the party, but are the funds being merchandised?
Sometimes I wonder, I was just wondering, before Kingsley said it, I wonder if the monies are actually paid in cash or in some form of collateral. The way you call the millions and millions.
I'm wondering why political offices are so highly monetized. If people are to give service to the nation, to give service to the political party, must it cost them that much? It is appearing like an investment. If I am making an investment, then certainly there's a tendency for me to have returns.
Must recoup.
And if you are paying that much for party position offices, what will come for the elective offices? And what is the fate of somebody who is elected to a public office at a high cost, making such an investment? Then there will be the temptation to recoup.
You also have to ask the question. All right, so an aspirant pays 20 million naira for a form, and the aspirant clinches the chairmanship position. If that were to happen, how much will the chairman be earning to be able to pay back this amount? And if there are donors, we never used to have, I don't remember, but it's useful to explain to party members as well as the general public why you're paying this. Ordinarily, you would assume that a form is nominal and then a fee is also nominal, not the kind of exorbitant fee that
ideally
we are seeing here.
And why it is now 20 million for candidates Before, they were thinking about consensus, but now it appears to have been thrown open. So no longer consensus.
You want to weed out those who might not have a deep pocket.
Exactly. I thought, Bayo, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
I'm
we're out of time. But that story about ABSU, that's Abia State University students.
Uturu, yes.
Yes, I didn't recall. It's a matter that, again, we have raised on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yes.
State-owned universities.
Yes.
What is their grounds in this strike? Do they also have a grounds with the federal government? Is the federal government, through the governing councils, also their employers? These are some of the things that, and whenever you raise these concerns, they will tell you injury to one is injury to all.
Bayo, thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow and Friday. All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. As I said earlier on, our topic this morning is going to be very, very explosive. And you can join us via our Twitter handle at NTA GMN. We'll be right back.
Busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha Bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 24 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it, will run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our discussion this morning, let's listen into this background that put together by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
The fight against insurgency in different regions of the nation has been one taken headlong without retreat. This has gapped so much, not just from the government, but the people, communities, and their resources, with no end to the taming of the hydra-headed monster resurfacing as other insecurity concerns. With the new field of attack swelling in the northwest, the governor of Zamfara State, Bello Mohammed Matawali, says has become an existential threat and as such urging the federal government to put more efforts into fighting it. This statement comes after the recent massacre of over 200 people by bandits in the state, precisely at the Anka Abukuyum local government areas of the state. This is just one out of the numerous attacks in the region as people seek speedy intervention. Some of the identified hotspots include Gando in Bukuyum local government area, Muhaye in Safi local government area, Bayanrua in Maradun local government area, amongst others. In the words of the Zamfara State Governor, when he received the federal government delegation after an attack, he said, and I quote, "We have virtually explored and tried all workable options in our relentless efforts to address this challenge. We tried the dialogue mechanism, which had worked for some time before deliberate efforts by some misguided politicians to scuttle the process. We employed the service of hunters and provided them with motorcycles and allowances. Only recently we paid the service hunters the sum of 53 million naira in addition to their full upkeep. In the aftermath of the recent attacks in Anka and Bukuyum local government areas, we expended the sum of 250 million naira to provide vehicles and allowances for both the civilian JTF and the conventional security outfits." End of quote. However, despite these efforts, attacks still persisted. Now, what else can be done to rid the Northwest of insecurity? What are the roles of the people themselves? These are some questions guests on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria will be answering shortly.
All right. Thank you, Iyemi Ajayi, for the background. Let me quickly introduce our guests, and they are all here. The Governor of Plateau State and Chairman, Northern Governors Forum, His Excellency Simon Bakolalong. Right Honorable Simon Bakolalong. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Also joining us in our conversation is Dr. Kebiru Adamu. He's a security risk management expert and a familiar face and a friend of the house. Thank you very much, Ade, for having you.
My pleasure.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we did.
All right. And then also joining this conversation is another regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, General John Temlong. He's joining us from our Just Network studios. He was the first commander of the Multinational Joint Task Force in the Northeast. And he's also a former president of the Alumni Association of the National Defense College. General Temlong, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thanks, Kingsley. It's a pleasure to be with you once again.
All right. Also part of this conversation is Idayat Hassan, who is the Director, Center for Democracy and Development. She's with us via Zoom. Idayat, a pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. Maybe you frame your shot, well, it's not a shot really, how you appear in front of your, I believe it's a laptop or a desktop, so that you have some headroom. Idayat, once again, a pleasure to have you with us. Claire?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Your Excellency, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this conversation, we recognize that you are also the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum. And there are various accounts of reports of insecurity, including your state, where you have moments of respite, and then suddenly again there is a flare-up. But there is a report that has been put together by the Center for Democracy and Development, and it talks about the insecurity situation in the northern part of the country, more especially in the northwest. It will be useful for us to listen into some of the highlights of that report as a basis for further conversation on this, Your Excellency. So, Idayat Hassan, we're coming back to you now on Zoom. Tell us, we understand that your CDD has a report on the insecurity in the northern part of the country. especially the Northwest. What does the report say?
Good morning once again. Interestingly, the report is what we call the Northwest Nigeria Bandit Problem, explaining the conflict drivers. And it's quite interesting what we found with the report. I think first and foremost is to note that this conflict is not actually a new one. What has actually changed is the intensity itself, the numbers of actors, and importantly, the location, because previously it was a conflict that was just between the Nigeria-Niger border, even if we go by the treaties of amalgamation as far back as the 1914, as well as the fact that this attack, again, is the intensity of the attack, the number of actors, like I have earlier mentioned, are important drivers. And instead of the bandits who previously relied so much on what we in the local context call juju, they have either added juju or they have actually replaced it more with AK-47 and other sophisticated weaponry. But be that as it may, there are lots of reasons for this conflict. The root causes are not just one. The root causes still stem that this is actually a land conflict, first and foremost. The only difference is that currently it has actually become ethnicized. It's no longer what you can say, it's just a farmer-herder conflict. There is an ethnic dimension to this again. That the failure of the criminal justice system occasioning some form of injustices on all sides have also contributed to this conflict. Another important factor will then be the proliferation of small arms and light weapons as very important components, because here now you have so much arms in the hands of everybody itself. And in the midst of that, the rise of vigilantism and militia-based local security are a very important factor, as well as the breakdown of traditional and conflict resolution mechanism. In the last 2 decades in particular, it has also helped in terms of paving ways for this current crisis. So it's not one root cause, but is actually occasioned by lots of root causes. Now, there are victims on all sides. So the victims are not just the Fulanis, nor are they the Hausa community. They are across. And this victim also includes, of course, the security agencies, the traditional authorities. So when you look at the victim perpetrator table, it's one that is fused with not just the kind of crimes committed, but has got perpetrators overlapping, which of course makes responses very difficult in that regard. I think one very critical understanding we've also been able to bring from our report is the fact that, yes, the bandits are not homogeneous, they are quite heterogeneous, but still a sizable number of them are from a particular ethnic stock, as well as the infiltration of some foreign militants into it. But it must always be emphasized that this remains a local problem. It is not a problem that we can externalize and say it is driven by foreign actors. Then the identities and the motivation of the identities, the motivation, and how the bandits operate is very, very important. So we know, for instance, that the bandits are generally men. There are few women amongst them. And they range between the ages of 18, with the oldest bandits being just in their late 40s again. So it gives us the character, the identity of this. Then what are their motivations? While this started as a form of ethnic nationalist movement, we can boldly say that it has actually moved to one which has become a completely clear criminal enterprise, which is blurring whatever the initial motivation itself really has been. The operational strategy itself, I think what is very important, especially after the Bukum anchor, is again to show that there is no consistency in their modus operandi, but they are very adaptable, they are very dynamic, they are able to address any challenge they find themselves. So bandits are not just moving on motorcycles. Bandits also use the rivers as ways, as passages. Their motorcycles are not just driven by anybody. They are also driven by people who actually understand the cattle route, which means that they are not driving in the open space, but somewhere they will have to get to places like Bukunyo and Anka to move to the other parts of the state. Seasonal movements are important also, but these seasonal movements are very historical because they have to move still in spite of this conflict to feed their cattle as well. Aside from the fact that speaking to some of the feelers we have also insist that they also move at times depending on what the security strategy of the state really is. So if they find people who they feel are quite hostile to them, they then move to that state to foment conflict. Then this is also a moving conflict. It's not one that you can say Zamfara State alone can actually address. Most of the conflicts are within the borders with other states. So if you look at why is Sabombini, Isa, Rabah, even now Tureta in Sokoto is affected. It is because of the borders they share with different parts of Zamfara from Shinkafi are ongoing. The same also goes with Southern Kebbi, which we saw a very gory attack last week. Kaduna, Niger as well. And meaning it's a moving conflict also means that when they commit crime in Kaduna, it's so easy to move into Zamfara, particularly as some of them also have amnesty in some of these states. And it tells us one very important thing, that you cannot think of the conflict as a Zamfara problem, but it needs a regional approach as much as a national approach. Then the character of the bandit with the young children also means that any form of peace deals or even kinetic operation will have to entail a comprehensive DDR that will take care of this between 18 to 14 or even 18-year-old, because we cannot end up killing everybody itself. And I think one last point, so that others can come in and I can come in later, is also the character of the non-state actors' intervention. We cannot wish it away. The rise of vigilantism has actually occasioned a lot of extrajudicial killing action, not just killing, harassing, dispossession of property, and this has given basis for the conflict to intensify and for the bandits to mobilize based on ethnic sentiments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Idayat Hassan, and we'll return to you in a short while. But the causal variables you mentioned are also observable in other parts of the country. But one interesting thing that you talked about is the location. And I'm wondering, is there anything, attracting, the non-state actors and all the, elements into the South? Is there anything particularly that is, that is bringing them to the North and not to the other part of the country? More to the North and not to the other part of the country?
I think it's still about grazing. Grazing is a very important aspect of this. But coming generally to the conflict again and what we have as a country, I think last week in partnership with the Governors Forum, we actually launched these 2 reports. And the first report was on the national security, which we call multiple nodes, common dynamics. That whatever the conflicts, the causal factors for the conflict in the Northwest, the same is actually present in the Southeast, in the Southwest, in even the Boko Haram conflict, in the northeast. And this is why it is multiple norths, just like a biological cell. So you have the same thing, the issue of injustices coming up, vigilantism, the impunity, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, even fake news, helping to actually exacerbate it, and security sector responses, which has been very, very heavy on kinetic without us as a country looking at the non-kinetic measures in addressing some of this conflict. So it's you can't take away pastoring away from this whole conflict. And you can't take away the relationship over land and water resources, which we all need, aside from the social cohesion or national cohesion problems, where even some of these are not necessarily a Fulanization agenda, as we love to call it, but it's just the dynamics of people have to feed. We have to eat cattle, we have to eat crop, and there is climate change leading to desertification and drought ongoing, which means people will have to move from that part of the country. In fact, if I go back to the Northwest as an example, what the bandits themselves have actually caused meant that there were no cattle for them, there are no fodders for their cattle to feed on this period because the farmers could not plant. So they have to move to other parts of the country where people have planted, or they have to come to an agreement with people in some local communities so they can feed their cattle itself. So it's quite multifarious, it's scary, but it's actually the reality that some are common causes we have no option but to deal with as a country and as a people.
All right. Thank you very much, Hidayah Hassan. We will return to you later on in the course of the conversation. You've given us some elaborate background as to what is playing out, root causes, IDs of the bandits and other elements who are causing insecurity, especially, say, in the northwestern part of the country. Let's come back to our studios now and bring in His Excellency Simon Lalong, the Governor of Plateau State, who is also chairman of the Northern Governors Forum. Your Excellency, well, at a time, the Northeast appears to be having a lot of respite from Boko Haram terrorists. Yes. The Northwest is embroiled, as it were, in intensified banditry and kidnapping. Before we got on with our news bulletin, we did say that in the last 2 weeks, over 100 persons have been killed in, say, Kebbi State. 63 vigilantes and no fewer than 24 security personnel. In the latter instance, the convoy of the deputy governor of the state was attacked. And in Plateau State, in Benue, in Kaduna, of course, there are reports of these incidents. From the perspective of the chief security officers of the states, what is happening and how are you responding?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I must say that for the past, well, as a governor, for the past 6 or 7 years, and up to the time that I became the Northern Chairman of Northern Governors Forum, we had all these challenges. Now, for me, number one would be perhaps we had a very wrong approach in approaching some of these issues from the beginning, because it is now we are beginning to realize that even the security forces lacked capacity. We are beginning to say that we lack the technology, we lack the manpower to address some of these issues for a very long time. There was also this proliferation of arms at the border. We didn't control our border very well. So these arms were now everywhere. So for every little conflict that you had, people were playing over it. A little ethnic conflict, you will see AK-47. At that time, nobody knew what was AK-47. People believed that AK-47 was only carried by the army. Well, we are now beginning to see AK-47. We saw MG. That was even for me. The time that I started knowing which kind of arms. So the moment we left, there was this laxity in approaching some of these things, in addressing it squarely. There were more of introduction of different kind of ammunition. To the period where we saw dynamite. People were now introducing dynamite, bombs here and there. So at that time, for me, I am not a security expert, but I believe that at that time, the nation, it's not only during this regime, would have done some kind of attention and believe that a lot of things will happen in the future. Now, coupled with the natural factors like the climate change, the economic factors, where we see a lot of our youth coming out and no work to do, that means that they were becoming very vulnerable. And when you see crises like that, I saw it in my state, where you see a lot of crises, 500 or 200 naira, a small boy of the age of 12 can burn everybody, can kill anybody, can kill everybody. So these were things that we'll have to address right from the foundation. I agree with that, what she said, but what did we do to address? That's why I will always say, on the part of government too, we have ourselves to blame. For this long period, we envisaged that these things will continue to grow. We envisaged that we needed to employ or also engage and put the capacity to our armed forces. But we didn't do that. Now we're seeing, we're faced with those, with this kind of challenges. At the Northern Governors Forum, we took all of them into cognizance. We had several summits, and all of them addressed by the security chiefs, from the traditional council, from even the youth angle. At the end of the day, we said, yes, even if it is late, what we saw in Northeast was like a child's play. Now it's going back to it went to the Northwest, now moving again back to the North Central. In the North Central, we're all talking about farmer settlement, but it's beyond farmer settlement. What is happening in Nigeria is beyond farmer settlement. What's happening in Nasarawa today is beyond farmer settlement in Kogi and Plateau State. Just last week, I understand that they are already moving into Plateau State, and I will keep on asking, something must be done before they occupy Plateau. It will take a long time. By the time you are engaging them, they are spread all over. So this is the kind of thing that motivated us at the Northern Governors Forum to sit down. We address some of these issues, and you can also see that part of what we did was to also engage traditional council. The traditional council came up with their own. They are not given responsibilities. Most of these crimes starts within the society, within the environment, and they are incapacitated because they don't have any role to play again. They don't have roles to play because in identifying early occurrences, and also identifying some of the culprits and addressing the issues at that level. I'm very happy that part of what we did is now seeing a face at the constitutional amendment, because we agreed and we moved special role for traditional council. Now it is, I saw it and I was very happy. And it was passed by both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. We are looking towards engaging thoroughly the traditional council. The second aspect of it is even the communities. That is the vigilante aspect. You don't allow, you just wake up overnight because there is a crisis that you say you bring in vigilantes. Those vigilantes are not trained in the first place. By the time they go into engagement, you turn out more criminals because they have arms. You give them arms. Some of them will get arms. And to control them after the crisis is always very difficult. So there is a need to also engage the vigilantes early, train some of these people so that in every society, every community, everybody is seen as a security officer, So by the time you do that, and that is the youth angle that I also mentioned. So first of all, we had my last engagement as the chairman of Northern Governor. I won't say last, but we had the last meeting with Traditional Council. I'm very happy with the role of being played by our Traditional Council, especially the Sultan of Sokoto, because he brought all the Traditional Councils here and from the north, and we had a very serious session. at the International Conference Center. And within that, we were able to summarize many of the things that she said today were all summarized. And now, instead of talking, lamenting, we're talking about addressing the issues squarely. And so those were the things that we did. We put in a summary, and now waiting for them to give me the report for implementation, including addressing them, addressing the aspects of the security at different angles. Because for us, you see the origins are different. What will start as a serious crisis in the North Central will not be the same. But each time there is an aspect of it, there is a danger that will spread to the other side, because there are always movements. By the time they are engaged with the military, they quickly move out. But why can't we do it at the same time, so that we stop them from moving out? They will say, okay, do it at the same time. By the time you do it at the same time, you'll be surprised that, and what happened in the Northwest, a lot of them have now moved to the central. How did they move to the central? No control. How did they move to the central? How will they move to the south? So we must come back to addressing some of these issues. Otherwise, in the heat of unemployment, youth restiveness, if we are not careful, in the next 5 years, we'll find what is more than what we are seeing today. So the earlier we concentrate, especially we tell some of our governors to say that, yes, you must put concentration on security. It's just not enough to say that you are building roads, you are building this, you are building that. Those things can be destroyed in one day if there are insecurity. So as we move into addressing the issue of infrastructure or the issue of all other responsibilities, we must first of all look at it. After all, it's even the priority in the Constitution, protection of lives and properties.
Excellency, I must ask you this question, because when the issue of insecurity is discussed, both the print and on TV, the leadership, it's always, referenced. And the reference is to the fact that, talks about the quality of attention that leaders, chief executives, give to the issue of insecurity. And adjectives like insincerity is being used. My question is, are chief executives in the North really sincere in tackling insecurity?
Well, I will say yes, and I will also say no. I'll say yes because you will find some people, you will find in some places where you see the actions of the chief security officers. I've said it as a governor, that it is not always that I will blame federal government, because the Constitution also makes me the chief security officer. Just like I did in my state, I always tell them that if there's a crisis, there are destruction of properties, loss of lives and everything, first I take responsibility. I will not go to the television and start talking about is the president, is the president. The president has his limit. I will tell them. That was why I formed Forgiveness Day in Plateau State. I said first, the purpose of the Forgiveness Day is that every year we take census of what has been happening. I tell them that I am responsible as the chief executive officer of my state, because I swore to protect you. And if by chance something happened, the first thing you will ask is, how did it happen? It's for me. Now, if I look at it and start to examine what happened, that is the way that I will now be responsible in checking whatever is happening in my state. Not to say that, yes, it's always the president. Yes, the president must also have his challenge and capacity within that side. But if you are elected, you went to contest for governor, you should know that the first responsibility for you as a governor is to protect lives and properties. Is to protect lives, protection of life is to ensure that you guarantee security of your people, guarantee for everything that happened. You should also learn to admit that something is wrong with you. It may also be as a result of injustice. It may also be as a result of being unfair to people. It must also be as a result of mistake in the course of your administration that created that friction. For instance, you wake up to see where there are clashes between one ethnic group and another in your state, you take side with that ethnic group. It is not the president that will come and tell you that you are wrong. What you do is to find ways of addressing some of these issues. You look at it from the background, you address some of these things that you think that are very, very minor, but will also metamorphose into serious crisis. That was exactly what we started doing in Plateau State. So for those things, it is not the responsibility of federal government. It may not always be the responsibility of the security. It is also the responsibility of the administration. The way you are administering people will also give them sense of responsibility. They will also give them hope that if there are crises, the communities themselves will own up in addressing those things before government will even come out to do that.
Well, Excellency, before we bring in the other two guests, tell us from an emotional perspective, what is the feeling or reaction when there is another report of fatalities arising from banditry, ethnic clashes? And the numbers we're talking about are scores of dead bodies. I mean, if you were to line up in the studio here, 20 dead chickens, you will feel a sense of horror. But, you know, almost every other week, reports of 10s, 20s, and so on and so forth, killed in various instances. And the numbers I told you earlier.
Yes.
63 vigilantes ambushed, 24 service personnel, and on and on. It looks like, how does a chief executive respond to this? Do you speak to your colleagues, and how do they also respond?
Well, you know, I started talking about incapacity. We mentioned that incapacity because at the point when we started seeing people were fighting with bows and arrows, then all of a sudden AK-47. From AK-47, we saw dynamite flowing everywhere. So that aspect is not really under the control of the states. That is when we would have done a lot of enhancing the capacity of our armed forces, because we fought wars. At least we have a very high caliber of people. I'm talking here, General Temlong is here. When they start talking about the history, when they were there in the army, it was perhaps different now. That's why I don't want to be talking about the army, because the way people move now, people go into recruitment not because they want to serve the country. People move into recruitment because there is no job. There are no jobs. And that kind of thing, how do you expect somebody to put in his best? I should also expect that in terms of promotion, training, and other enhancement within the force, they should give good consideration to people who are doing their best for this country. By the time we politicize it, we are also politicizing the entire security, because it will mean that we are not putting right people in the right place. So that is why you will talk about things turning into the way they are within a long period of time, and we are not able to address it. It is just now that we are talking about bringing Tucano helicopters. Of course, there were also protocols with it. I know very well on the issues of things like that. But it is high time, like I said. For us in the Northern Zone, we have done our best, and we are hoping that some of the issues that were put on ground, either constitutional means or so many other administrative means, we will be able to address it. Because the danger is not even now. If we keep on like you are saying, for me as a governor, I'm afraid. I said, today I'm governor of Plateau. I'll do my best. Tomorrow, what will happen when I leave? If there is a change, if there's a change, it will mean that we'll go back. And when we go back, it will be worse than what I saw. So in an administration, I always emphasize that the earlier, the better. We must make the sacrifice now for the future. Of course, if we continue to play politics with security, tomorrow it will swallow all of us. Even in retirement, because yes, my age is not that of retirement, but then those who are waiting for retirement, they will not retire well.
All right. Thank you, Your Excellency. Let me bring Dr. Kabiru Adamu into the conversation now. Dr. Adamu, you listened to Idayat, and she mentioned a number of, causal variables, and of course the drivers. She talked about, the fact that, insecurity is mutating in terms of numbers, the number of actors, and in terms of location. And His Excellency has also talked about approach to dealing with some of these issues. In Plateau, for instance, he instituted the Forgiveness Day, the Forgiveness, Peace and Forgiveness Day, where, people come.
Peace building.
Yes. And there's also the call for traditional institutions to step up. And I'm wondering, can you evaluate this, two approaches? And what's the extent to which they can address the issues?
Thank you, Claire. Let me start by thanking NTA, commending NTA for highlighting this issue that is very concerning, and like His Excellency has expressed, it's quite an existential challenge to the North. I would also like to commend CDD, that's where Idayat works, for the effort they have done in contributing to the solutions, as it were, to the challenges. I only hope that our leaders, and His Excellency is representing them there, would take that report, look at it, and see what aspects they are willing to implement. It's free by a non-governmental organization, and so there is really no cost to them in that regard. Now, in direct response to your question, let me kind of put the issue in perspective. Last year, I run a consultancy, and we have an intelligence dashboard where we keep data of incidents that happened. Last year, about 9,000 people died in Nigeria, and 70% of that were in the North. That is how bad the situation is in the North. And I'm very happy that the Northern Governors Forum, chaired by His Excellency, is taking that issue seriously. But more needs to be done. If 70% of the fatalities in the country is affecting the North, then something is wrong with the region. I'm from the North, and these are my brothers, these are my fathers, my sisters that are dying. So we need to stem that. I will be happy if in 2022 we reduce it to 10%. And the solution has been provided. Now, there are 3 levels of intervention. The federal level, which we can all talk about, mainly kinetic, and we also need to admit and contend with the fact that security still remains in the exclusive list. So a lot of the responsibility is in the hands of the federal government. The second level is the state level, and His Excellency has done quite well. We know what he inherited, and we know where Plateau State is at the moment. He's mentioned some of the things he's doing. Then the last level is the community level, which includes you and I. Now, my worry over time, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, at what point have we evaluated all of these efforts? In all the discussions, both by His Excellency and by Idayat, there is one element that is missing: coordination, both between the federal and state level, and then between the 27 ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in security. You cannot be pouring, something into a bucket, and you're not checking to see what level that bucket has reached. It's either there is a hole where it's going, or it's overflowing. Now we need to do an evaluation and find out. I make bold to say that there is no sector in the country that is receiving funds at the moment like security. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw the governors making a statement that they spend more on security than the federal government, and that may be true, because if you bring the 36 state governors together and see what they spend on security and what the federal government spends on security, it's a lot of money. But at what point have we evaluated? And I'm reaching a point. We need to enhance monitoring and evaluation within the security sector. We are contributing money, but we are not checking to see how that money is being spent. Now, the major challenge I've seen, and this is in direct response to your question, hardware alone cannot solve security. And Idai had made that point. There are two approaches that politicians mentioned today: kinetic and non-kinetic approach. Now it's become common say, people use it, but how well do we even understand what it means? Kakovit contributed, I think, about 100 billion naira. And I attempted to advise them. Unfortunately, I don't know any of them, but I put it out there on my platforms, advising them that instead of buying hardware, one good element to start with is introduce M&E, monitoring and evaluation within the security sector. Dangote buys 200 vehicles and donates to the police. Would he now put tracking devices to see how those vehicles are being deployed? Would one senior ranking police officer take 20 and send to his village? You get my point. So we need to enhance M&E within the sector so that we know how these funds are being used. And then the point made by His Excellency around promotion and the welfare of officers, M&E can also help in that regard. Just a couple of days ago, I was engaging with some uniformed persons, and the grievance they were saying is some of their colleagues have been deployed for training in Europe, and they were not happy with the criteria that was used in selecting the persons to go for those training. So transparency within the system can be enhanced by M&E measures. So I think for me, that is what I would really respond in terms of your question. First off, we need to evaluate the policies that we have in place, both at the federal and state level, see how much they are contributing to solving the challenges that we have. If you are putting in place solutions that are not commensurate to the challenges you have, you're not likely to get the results you want. So M&E would reveal that. It will also tell you how to correct whatever deviations or mistakes there are in the system. And then, of course, our auditing functions. When you bring this up, security personnel will tell you that because of the confidentiality issues and nature of security, you cannot commit audit. But other countries are doing it. You can do it in a manner that does not distort the confidentiality that you want to achieve. But in a democratic system, you need to audit security just like you're auditing other sectors.
Well, Dr. Kabir Adamu, thank you very much. We'll return to the M&A perspective on managing insecurity in the country presently. Let's go over now to our Just Network Center, where we earlier introduced General John Temlong. General John Temlong, we have kept you for quite a while. You've listened to all the other guests. The North is in crisis, as to, of course, other parts of the country are. But tell us what your perspective is on what is unfolding with the body count almost on a daily basis.
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley, and let me commend you for this. Quite, you said it's going to be an explosive session. I think rather than explosive, I think it's a very informative session that we've had His Excellency, my Governor, Right Honorable Simon Bakola Lang, spoke to you about the perspective of what the northern governors are doing. We heard from Idiot what they have done at their level, and Kabiru bringing up the essence of M&E. Let me start by correcting certain things. You don't do M&E in the armed forces or security agencies by NGOs, no. There are issues already in place. You have a Department of Standards and Evaluation. They are the ones who set up the standards. They evaluate what they have been doing and come out and tell where there are leakages, where there are ones. Apart from that, there is what you call at the command levels, there's the air admin inspection, and there are very many areas of this. But recently, at the defense reform, which I'm a member, we recommended that the President and the Minister of Defense need to establish the equivalent of what you have in the UN or in the Pentagon or in the Whitehall or in EU, what you call the Inspector General. That Inspector General's office, because of the nomenclature here, we said, okay, it should be the standards and evaluation still here. So those are the ones that carry out those things. But to go further into all that is happening, I think we need to look at our approach. First, let's look at the understanding. IDEA has tried, they tried at their own level to come up with what they think are the causal. But you see, they are looking at security from the traditional state-centric security. Now, where are they getting these young men from? They are from the society. Have we been able to provide them educational security? Have we been able to provide them the wherewithal to live without carrying arms? That's economic security. Now, you were discussing during the newspaper review about the exorbitant prices to even contest for offices in a political party. Now, have we provided political security to these young men? Their ages are between 18 to 40. Have we been able to provide health security? So if we find out that, you see, when we start saying that security is on the exclusive list, is wrong. Security is on the concurrent list because these are provided at each level by each tier of government. Either the federal do some intervention, which they have said, okay, the universities, research institutions, and the tertiary institutions, they have even gone further to talk of unity schools to sort of manage our diversity, secondary education, primary at the local government level. So these are part of the comprehensive approach to security that we need to start, because this is what prevents those people from getting the ready recruits to recruit into the system. Now, they talked about climate change as if it's in passing. Well, having operated as a first national commander, the Lake Chad Basin, which is now the focal point of the operation, had almost over half of the cattle that we have in this country. The place is untenable for them now. Now, if you look at Mali, Mali has problems, serious problems, insecurity. Niger, insecurity. Chad, insecurity. Again, there is desert encroachment coming down. It's only Senegal that has been able to do this, the Green Belt project. Now, the Fulani man in Sokoto and the one in Niger, they speak virtually the same language. The Hausa man speaks about the same language. And now you have rightly pointed out that they move, their place of residence is determined by where they get food and water for their cattle. And so we must look at how to address this, because they do not have borders. We talk about porous borders. I laugh because people are not going to see these are borders unless you start building wall like what the Israelis or Americans want to do. Because you walk across, you don't even know you're in Niger or in Nigeria. I've operated in all those border areas, northwest and northeast. It's only when you see a beacon that you know that there's a border point. All these crossing points are at the roads where the immigration and customs are. Those are people who want to come in legally. But animals don't follow the main road. You have been told that they follow their cattle route. They go across. And once they cross and they're grazing, you go and then you don't go and start asking them, are you Nigerians? How many Nigerians have ID cards? That you even ask them. That is another security infrastructure that you do. So if you cross over to Niger, every Nigerian has an ID card. Every Chadian has an ID card. Every Cameroonian has an ID card. But not in Nigeria. This politics of our national ID card thing must stop. We must put that to the front burner. So we stop these young men and give them meaningful life, give them hope. We have not been able to manage our diversity well. You see, even in the Northern Governors Forum, when they used to attack Plateau, there were less sympathy with us because people were thinking that it's their own people. They're not, the other people are not the same. Unless we manage our diversity and know that everybody is the same, now that they have succeeded in compartmentalizing us, they dealt with Plateau. After dealing with Plateau, they have moved to Zamfara, they have moved to Kaduna, they have moved to Sokoto. When they finish, they move to Katsina. They continue as a circle. They are fluid. They are not holding ground. So what it is that what we need is that a synergy by the governments of the northern states to know that an attack on one is an attack on all. One is the same country. Two, we need to see that all that they discuss, is there a mechanism for implementing? Because when they go back to their states, do they implement the decisions that have been taken? And if you do that, do the northern governors have a mechanism to monitor and evaluate what has been implemented? Now, how do they come about the idea of buying the equipment they buy? Who does the analysis for them? If I were to advise them, it's not this number of vehicles that you are buying. They will not work. These people move on motorcycles on those routes. Vehicles will not follow them on those routes. So there is what we call force multiplier in the military. All you need is to meet the National Security Advisor, the northern governors, buy drones. Buy drones, and drones that can be armed, and let the armed forces train on them. Because the money you use in buying 1 or 2 vehicles can buy 1 drone. But there are higher sophisticated drones that you can buy. Because these people are moving on motorcycles, the drones will pick them. They are on a straight line most of the time. The drones will pick them there. Even if they don't pick them, they give you an early warning. They give you an early warning. So this dissipator of efforts, like somebody said, the boss will carry 10, 15 to his village or to use for personal, carrying firewood, and the rest will not work. We see the people are moving on motorcycles on these routes. They move and they are very mobile. The armed forces or the police or security men come in their vehicles and they get to a place, they get stuck. By the time they dismount to start moving, motorcycles have gone 100 kilometers away. Yet with a drone, you are able to cover, if you have enough drone, you can cover up the whole of the northern states and monitor their movements. As they cross from one state to the other, you either ambush them or use the drone to clear them and the rest. And that will give us the respite. Because you see, before you get more boots on ground to start occupying every place, it will take you more time to train the people. It will take you more time to get the experience to move all those places, the logistics that are involved in moving and keeping those people in the bush, and the rest will be enormous. So I think what we need to do is we need to use technology as a force multiplier to be able to deal with these challenges. Fortunately, they don't have that capacity for technology as we have. And even if they have, some of those technology will not be available to them. So I think we should think beyond, outside the box, and do the proper thing. But most importantly, there needs to be synergy between the governors. You could see discordant town. When the governor of Zamfara came, the first thing he did was amnesty. They were parleying with bandits hanging AK-47 in government house. I asked the military, I said, did the commander there advise the governor? If they did, what did he do? They said he was advised, but he said, no, this is what he wanted. Yes, they parleyed with them. After that one, they collected their money, and the next thing, they used the money to buy arms. Arms are very readily available today. The whole of the Libyan armory was left blank open, and people have bought them, people sell them, and they're available. They come in from Europe, and the rest, people buy them. All you need is to sell 2, 3 cows. You have enough money to buy weapons. And so when they rustle cows, they have sources of money. So I think it's not even that. You need even to have the international dimension. How do we track there is a commission for small arms, but is it very effective in West Africa? If it's not, how do we strengthen that institution that will monitor the movement of small arms and light weapons?
Okay,
General Temlang, to track the terrorist financing.
General
We
Temlang,
talked about here that we are going to reveal their name. As a country, we must have the political will to start exposing those who are conniving with terrorists.
General Temlang, sir, I'm sorry. Let's just pause you for a while and take a short break. When we come back, we'll, of course, give you time to conclude your thoughts.
Every Harmattan, he falls sick so frequently and misses school often. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apple. She said an apple a day keeps
If you want to keep germs away, then use Dettol soap regularly. Germs and disease spread easily during Harmattan. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer-long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha Bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations, and investigations that were not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It's equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla. We have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service from our headquarters studios in Abuja. All our four guests are still with us. Hidayat Hassan via Zoom. She's of Center for Democracy and Development. General John Temlong, Just Network Center, and Dr. Kabir Adamo, Security Risk Analyst. And His Excellency, Right Honorable Simon Bakola, along the Governor of Plateau State. Your Excellency, I would like us to talk about one aspect. I know that General Temlong has raised a number of issues. Some of them we can't possibly elaborate on for security considerations. But Dr. Kabir talked about monitoring and evaluation. And do we need a change in our mindset about what security should entail? Namely, you find that security is often shrouded in mystery and opacity. Oh, this is a security matter. carry the folder like this, and so on and so forth. So you want to monitor, you want to evaluate. Nobody says. I mean, state governments have been, over the years, spending money on security. They fund the police, and now when you have special operations, state governments also pitching for those things. But who monitors and evaluates what is spent? Also, the issue of coordination. Part of monitoring and evaluation would be, all right, last year, as Kabiru said, from their dashboard, 9,000 fatalities arising from banditry, kidnapping, and sundry criminal activities. This year, your KPI, which will be your key performance indicator, will be to crash those numbers. At the end of the year or on a quarterly basis, tell us what the numbers are. Are the numbers declining or are they rising? Who is working, who is not working? We cannot be giving you money and then you are claiming that it's a security matter. Excellency.
Thank you very much. I think connected to that question is also the issue of synergy. Because you have a lot of security agencies doing security work. In a state, for instance, where you have everybody, you have customs, you have immigration, you have everybody, they are all part of security. And at the end of the day, you sit down, you are trying to approach insecurity. There must be that synergy. There must be that network. Otherwise, what I have seen from my experience as a governor is that you come to a security meeting, this one will take his own and he will not share it with the other person. Because everyone wants to be recognized, for either for promotion or to get, yes, that's what they do. Because there must be not only at the state level, but at the federal level. The education must also be at the federal level. Let that sensitization be at the federal level. Because if what you call security, everybody knows his limit, but at the same time, when it comes to intelligence gathering, you must share it with each other. But that's not what we see. Because you ask people to go and do an operation. They go there. This one is frustrating the other one so that he will fail. At the end of the day, it will come out and say, it's the military that did it. It's the police that did it. The civil defense that did it. There's no need. There's no need for that. So, like we mentioned, if these are federal agencies responsible for that, that's why people are also calling for state police. They are not strictly speaking under the control of the governors because they report to the federal. They report to the federal. Yes, you will have meeting with them, but it's not everything that they tell you. It's not the same report. I know that. It's not the same report they will give you that they will give at the federal, give to their bosses at the national. So I don't know whether that is exactly the practice all over the world. But then, in our own peculiarities of our country, will demand that we take a different approach to issues like that, because we have to do that monitoring. Like you mentioned, when somebody mentioned about vehicles, at one time I bought 50 vehicles, and before the year ends, I saw that about 10 or 15 of them had disappeared. I asked what happened to the vehicles. They said, no, some of them were taken to the northeast, some of them were taken to the northwest, and those vehicles did not come back again. And that's why some governors are getting worried. And you employ and you put in a lot of money. At the end of the day, some of even the equipments and facilities are taken away from your state and being deployed to another state. So who, at a point, who is in charge of security will always be a problem. It's always a problem. Because they post a commissioner of police to you, the first thing he will tell you, we don't have anything in our office. They take this as, we don't have anything in our office. Whether you like it or not, you have to take that responsibility. But at the time that you are buying them, because people mention drones, yeah, you buy the drone, tomorrow you hear that the drone is taken to another state. A governor, I don't want to mention his name, is in court presently because he said he bought some things, and first of all is to go and get an order from the court that at no time will any of these things be taken away from his state to another place. It's all meant for his state, and that should be applied in his state. So, but if we have synergy, well, that way, he will think that, yes, he's making a point. But these security issues is not always what you do in your state. What happens in another state will move to your state. Will move to your state. And we must have a kind of harmony or coordination. That's the coordination we're talking about. If you say you buy it only for your state, you wait. Another thing will come from another state. Like we're saying, banditry move from other states to our states. When you have coordination, you are sharing intelligence with another person. Even the equipment that you have, you can help him to handle the issue there. Don't allow it to move into your state before you handle it because you have the equipment. So there must be that kind of coordination. And that is why I also agree with him that we must develop that kind of monitoring to understand, to share views like we do at the Northern Governors Forum. Mostly when we come for Northern Governors Forum, we are sharing views. What did you do in your state to address what you have? What did you do? How did you bring in something like this? Some will ask me, when you came in, there was serious crisis in your state for 8 years, 7, 8 years. What did you do to manage that crisis? I gave them the secret. I said, this was what I did. I realized that there was confusion. It was not well handled. There was this lack of trust between ethnic nationalities. There was also lack of fairness by the past regime. You go and say you are doing appointment, you say, I must not appoint Mr. B because he belongs to a particular tribe. You say my construction, my infrastructure should not reach Mr. C because he did not vote for me. Those are things that will continue to inflame crisis in the state. So what I did was to harmonize all the views, all the different views, all the different grievances of the state, and we put them together. It didn't take us 3 months. We started implementing. If your case was that you were neglected because they believe that your ethnic group does not deserve any appointment, I gave you an appointment. So you feel a sense of belonging. And together, like that, we came to create what we call a peace building agency. As a result of that, because to sustain that kind of agreement, we brought in a peace agency. It was President that even inaugurated the peace agency in Plateau State, and we went ahead to pass it as a law. So we have a peace agency, and that peace agency is responsible for monitoring every crisis, every dispute that is in every community. When the Americans came, they saw what we were doing, and they set up early warning signals to complement that effort. The French came, they set up early warning signals to complement that effort. And when they saw and were getting results out of it, that was how I brought in the Forgiveness Day. Because a Forgiveness Day is a collection of what the peace building have done over the years. And once they do that, we take them out publicly to come and show example of what happened. We were in dispute, I was fighting you. But along the line, I realized that there was no need for us to fight. And because of that, we've made peace. Let us tell the world how we made peace. They will come out and say, they've exhibited, they have reconciled, and all of them. And so we got a place in Plateau State, a garden, very popular street. I converted that place into peace, garden of love, a garden of forgiveness. And we now decorated the place, put security there. Every year, we bring all the ethnic groups together in that place. Those that have recently done that, they will come out and exhibit. Say, from last year to this year, this community, we've done peace. That was where we even when we had what local government that had crisis last year, the Bassa people. That was where they came and exhibit. They said, no, we've realized after a long discussion, we've now made peace. We are not fighting again. They signed peace agreement for the state to implement. So if you have those things like that, it's better for me to put in a lot of money than wait until when there's crisis and start buying ammunition. Buying ammunition, because that's the kinetic approach. It may solve, it may not solve the problem. We've done a lot of kinetic approach at the Northern Governors Forum. There were those suggestions. Some people say, no, let us not do non-kinetic approach. We must go for kinetic approach. But my question was to ask, we are going for kinetic approach. Will it solve the problem forever? You do killings. The people will move from here, or the moment they see your ammunition, they are going to bring more sophisticated ammunition to engage you, like what we see in some states. You think that it is 20 people. The next one, when they are coming, they are about 200. They are about 200. So the best thing is to also, as we do the kinetic, we must also employ the non-kinetic approach through dialogue and things, peace building, through dialogue and peace building. So that is what we recommend to most of the states, and we say, look, let us continue with this as we also engage them.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your response. We're on the home stretch. Dr. Kabir Adamu, you're familiar with our protocol. So very briefly, because you raised the issue of monitoring and evaluation and coordination, who should take the lead in this? Because listening to His Excellency, you can see some dissonances at the state level and also perhaps at the federal level. Who should take responsibility for this, and how should that institution also be monitored and evaluated in terms of outcomes?
So in other countries, they have what they call professional standards. I think that's what the UK has. There's a separate unit within the security sector that plays the role of an ombudsman, for lack of a better word, for the security sector. Now, I know that in our constitution, there are positions for ombudsmen. Remember, there are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies within the security sector. So the intelligence community have that role, but they are yet to be appointed. No ombudsman has been appointed for any of the intelligence agencies. Now, that's one aspect. The Police Service Commission, the Ministry of Police Affairs, Ministry of Interior, Office of the National Security Advisor, all of them can play that role. But the overarching responsibility is in the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Planning. It's the one that looks at the budgets for all the organizations, sees how much they are contributing to what. So I expect that at the end of the year, there should be an evaluation. But that body is a civilian body. And like General Teglong has alluded, the military, the uniformed person will not allow the civilian. So at the end of the day, the parliament, the National Assembly, will have to have that role. The parliament needs to strengthen its capacity for oversight functions, especially within these organizations, like it happens in other countries. If it brings in all of these agencies, apart from the invitation we see periodically, but from a more strategic point of view, what do we intend to achieve? You mentioned KPIs. What is the parliament having some kind of eye on that? 9,000 people died last year. At the end of this year, will the parliament look and see what contribution all the 27 MDAs contributed to reducing the number to, let's say, 100. So those are the kind of things I'm expecting to see. Each of these agencies I've mentioned would have responsibility one way or the other. Finally,
let's bring Idayat so that she can also give us her concluding remarks and which way forward. Idayat, your report was quite inclusive, and we would like you to quickly, in maybe 60 seconds, respond to His Excellency's idea of not just using, one approach, but of course a mixture of both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches, to solving the insecurity issues. What are your suggestions for the first critical steps to take?
I completely align myself with His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State. There is a need for so much focus on non-kinetic approach. And very importantly, to add to what is already said, is the role of the traditional authority in this. We have to emphasize their role because they are at the grassroots level. I think the second thing is also bringing back our local traditional conflict resolution models. If you go to Zamfara, they have what is called the Gumi model, which has been fantastic in terms of stemming the violence in that place. When you look at the fact that Gumi is just between Anka and Bukunyu, and there has been least impacted by the conflict, it tells you a lot. And I think lastly for me, it is still a developmental problem, and Nigeria must address the developmental challenge plaguing our communities, education, health, the delivery of public goods and services as a way of rebuilding trust with the governed. And on the kinetic effort, anything in the Northwest, it must be a simultaneous military operation such that we prevent the conflict from moving into other states, as well as addressing the policing deficit. The numbers of police are quite too much. You need more police in the villages and in the communities, well-trained, abiding by the rules of engagement, and having the means to actually propagate this war, which includes weaponry as well. Thank you.
All right, Idayat, thank you very much. We need more policemen. Perhaps we should also, again, echo the point that policemen on so-called VIP duties should be withdrawn. There are over 150,000 of them on those duties. All right, let's go over to our Just Network Center and get the closing thoughts of General John Temlong. General Temlong, you made a number of valid propositions, but to get your closing thoughts now, this is a live issue. It's existential. As we are speaking, these teenagers, 18, and then, of course, getting to their 20s and 30s, are waiting to strike. And unfortunately, there just might be fatalities. What can we do in the immediate term?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think going forward, we have to address national security as a comprehensive package, not a state-centric security. We need to address human security aspects, and that I have enumerated included education, even the environment, health, politics, and the rest. The next thing is that we need to have force multipliers, because these people are already deployed. They are moving from point A to B. The question of using technology is not something that we might look at, no. What we must do is to use technology. And I think we must be frank to ourselves is that the states are not doing anything out of the public. The Sir William Commission report of 1958, which addressed the fears of the minorities, that recommended a centralized police force, talked about the burden of sharing of the funding of police between the regional government and the federal. So they are not doing anything new. The Constitution provides for a police council where all the governors are members of that council. And I think at that place, they can actually develop the synergy on the sort of equipment that we need to buy to help for the synergy, for us to achieve synergy in dealing with this crisis. It is quite dangerous when people are moving from point A to B, they hit and run. What we call hit and run, guerrilla tactics, that's what they do. Or Sareka Noke, as they call it in Hausa. So we definitely have to checkmate them. And the only way you can checkmate them is for you to be as fluid as them too. And to be able to be proactive, not reactive. What we are doing is that we are reacting to their attacks. We must be proactive and take them to stop them from having the capacity to attack. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Kingsley.
All right, General John Temlong, always a delight having you. And Good Morning Nigeria, former president of the Alumni Association of the National Defense College and first commander of the Multinational Joint Task Force in the Northeast. General Temlong from our Just Network Studios, appreciation. I also would like to thank the Director, Center for Democracy and Development, Idayat Hassan. She was with us via Zoom. Here in the Abuja studios, Dr. Kabir Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Thanks for your insight. And last, of course, but not the least, we'd like to appreciate His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, Right Honorable Simon Bako Lalong, Chairman, Northern Governors Forum. We thank you always for obliging us with your contribution. All right. So
that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, Wednesday. Please join us again tomorrow for another edition of the program. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. We are still in the fight against rape and rapists. Do join us.
I'm Kingsley Osagolo. Have a nice day.